The Secret Doctrine by Elena Petrovna Blavatsky, a facsimile of the original edition of 1888, printed by the Cunningham Press, Alhambra, California. Volume 1, Cosmogenesis. Part 1, Cosmic Evolution, 7 stanzas translated with commentaries from the Secret Book of John. Stanza 4. 1. Listen, ye sons of the earth, to your instructors, the sons of the fire. Learn, there is neither first nor last, for all is one, number issued from no number. 2. Learn what we who descend from the primordial seven, we who are born from the primordial flame, have learned from our fathers. 3. From the effulgency of light, the ray of the ever-darkness, sprung in space the reawakened energies, the one from the egg, the 6, and then the 5. Then the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5, the twice 7, the sum total. And these are the essences, the flames, the elements, the builders, the numbers, the arupa, the rupa, and the force of divine man, the sum total. And from the divine man emanated the forms, the sparks, the sacred animals, and the messengers of the sacred fathers within the holy four. 4. This was the army of the voice, the divine mother of the seven. The sparks of the seven are subject to, and the servants of, the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh of the seven. These sparks are called spheres, triangles, cubes, lines, and modelers, for thus stands the eternal Nidana, the Oahu, which is 5. Darkness, the boundless, or the no number, Adi Nidana Svabhavat. 1. The Adisanat, the number, for he is one. 2. The voice of the Lord Svabhavat, the numbers, for he is 1 and 9. 3. The formless square. And these 3 enclosed within the circle are the sacred 4. And the 10 are the Arupa universe. Then come the sons, the 7 fighters, the 1, the 8th left out, and his breath, which is the light maker. 6. Then the second 7, who are the Lipika, produced by the 3. The rejected son is 1. The sons are countless. Commentary. 1. Listen, ye sons of the earth, to your instructors, the sons of the fire. These terms, the sons of the fire, the sons of the fire mist, and the like, require explanation. They are connected with a great primordial and universal mystery, and it is not easy to make it clear. There is a passage in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, wherein Krishna, speaking symbolically and esoterically, says, I will state the times, conditions, at which devotees departing from this life do so never to return, be reborn, or to return, to incarnate again. The fire, the flame, the day, the bright, lucky fortnight, the 6 months of the northern solstice, departing, dying, in these, those who know the Brahman yogis go to the Brahman. Smoke, night, the dark, unlucky fortnight, the 6 months of the southern solstice, dying in these, the devotee goes to the lunar light, or mention the astral light also, and returns, is reborn. These 2 paths, bright and dark, are said to be eternal in this world, or great kalpa, age. By the one a man goes, never to come back, by the other he returns. Now these names, fire, flame, day, the bright fortnight, etc., as smoke, night, and so on, leading only to the end of the lunar path, are incomprehensible without a knowledge of esotericism. These are all names of various deities which preside over the cosmopsychic powers. We often speak of the hierarchy of flames, see Book 2, or the sons of fire, etc. Sankaracharya, the greatest of the esoteric masters of India, says that fire means a deity which presides over time, Kala. The able translator of Bhagavad Gita, Kashinath Trimbak Telang, M.A. of Bombay, confesses he has no clear notion of the meaning of these verses, page 81, footnote. It seems quite clear, on the contrary, to him who knows the occult doctrine. With these verses, the mystic sense of the solar and lunar symbols are connected. The Pitris are lunar deities and our ancestors, because they created the physical man. The Agnishvata, the Kumara, the 7 mystic sages, are solar deities, though the former are Pitris also, and these are the fashioners of the inner man. See Book 2. They are the sons of fire, because they are the first beings, in the secret doctrine they are called minds, evolved from primordial fire. The Lord is a consuming fire, Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 24. The Lord, Christos, shall be revealed with his mighty angels in flaming fire, 2 Thessalonians 1, 7, 8. The Holy Ghost descended on the apostles like cloven tongues of fire, Acts 2, verse 3. Vishnu will return on the Kalki, the white horse, as the last avatar amid fire and flames, and Sosiush will be brought down equally on a white horse, in a tornado of fire. I saw heaven open, and behold a white horse, and he that sat upon him is called the Word of God. Revelations 19, verse 13. Amid flaming fire. Fire is aether in its purest form, and hence is not regarded as matter, but it is the unity of aether, the second manifested deity in its universality. But there are 2 fires, and a distinction is made between them in the occult teachings. The first, or the purely formless and invisible fire, concealed in the central spiritual sun, is spoken of as a triple, metaphysically, while the fire of the manifested cosmos is septenary, throughout both the universe and our solar system. The fire of knowledge burns up all action on the plane of illusion, says the commentary. Therefore, those who have acquired it and are emancipated are called fires. Speaking of the 7 senses symbolized as hotris, priests, the Brahmana says in Anujita, thus these 7 senses, smell and taste and color and sound, etc., are the causes of emancipation, and the commentator adds, it is from these 7 from which the self is to be emancipated. I am here devoid of qualities must mean the self, not the Brahmana who speaks. Sacred Books of the East, edited by Max Muller, Volume 8, page 278. Learn there is neither first nor last, for all is one number issued from no number. The expression, all is one number issued from no number, relates again to that universal and philosophical tenet just explained in stanza 3, comment 4. That which is absolute is of course no number, but in its later significance it has an application in space as in time. It means that not only every increment of time is part of a larger increment, up to the most indefinitely prolonged duration conceivable by the human intellect, but also that no manifested thing can be thought of except as part of a larger whole, the total aggregate being the one manifested universe that issues from the unmanifested or absolute called non-being or no number, to distinguish it from being, or the one number. Stanza 4 continued. 2. Learn that we, who descend from the primordial 7, we, who are born from the primordial flame, have learned from our fathers. This is explained in Book 2, and this name, primordial flame, corroborates what is said in the first paragraph of the preceding commentary on stanza 4. The distinction between the primordial and the subsequent 7 builders is this. The former are the ray and direct emanation of the first sacred 4, the Tetractis, that is, the eternally self-existent one, eternal in essence, note well, not in manifestation, and distinct from the universal one. Latent during Pralaya and active during Manvantara, the primordial proceed from Father-Mother, Spirit Hyle or Ilus, whereas the other manifested quaternary and the 7 proceed from the Mother alone. It is the latter who is the Immaculate Virgin Mother, who is overshadowed, not impregnated, by the universal mystery, when she emerges from her state of Laya, or undifferentiated condition. In reality, they are of course all one, but their aspects on the various planes of being are different. See Part 2, Theogony of the Creative Gods. The first primordial are the highest beings on the scale of existence. They are the archangels of Christianity, those who refuse, as Michael did in the latter system, and as did the eldest, mind-born sons of Brahma, Vedhas, to create or rather to multiply. Stanza 4 continued. 3. From the effulgence of light, the rays of the ever-darkness, sprung in space the reawakened energies, Diankochans, the one from the egg, the 6 and the 5. This relates to the sacred science of the numerals, so sacred indeed and so important in the study of occultism that the subject can hardly be skimmed, even in such a large work as the present. It is on the hierarchies and correct numbers of these beings invisible to us, except upon very rare occasions, that the mystery of the whole universe is built. The Kumaras, for instance, are called the 4, though in reality 7 in number, because Shanaka, Sananda, Sanatana and Sanat Kumara are the chief Vaidhatra, their patronymic name, as they spring from the fourfold mystery. To make the whole clear, we have to turn for our illustrations to tenets more familiar to some of our readers, namely the Brahminical. According to Manu, Hiranyagarbha is Brahma, the first male formed by the undiscernible causeless cause, in a golden egg, resplendent as the sun, as states the Hindu Classical Dictionary. Hiranyagarbha means the golden, or rather the effulgent womb, or egg. The meaning tallies awkwardly with the epithet of male. Surely the esoteric meaning of the sentence is clear enough. In the Rig Veda it is said that the one Lord of all beings, the one animating principle of gods and man, arose in the beginning in the golden womb, Hiranyagarbha, which is the mundane egg or sphere of our universe. That being is surely androgynous, and the allegory of Brahma separating into 2 and rejecting in one of his halves, the female Vak, himself as Viraj, is a proof of it. The one from the egg, the 6 and the 5, give the number 1065, the value of the firstborn. Later on, the male and female Brahma Prajapati, who answers to the numbers 7 and 14 and 21 respectively. The Prajapati are, like the Sephiroth, only 7, including the synthetic Sephira of the triad from which they spring. Thus from Hiranyagarbha or Prajapati, the triune, primeval Vedic Trimurti, Agni, Vayu, and Surya, emanate the other 7, or again 10 if we separate the first 3 which exist in 1, and 1 in 3, all, moreover, being comprehended within that one suprema, Parama, called Guya, or secret, and Sarvatma, the supersoul. The 7 laws of being lie concealed in Sarvatma, like thoughts in one brain. So are the Sephiroth. It is either 7 when counting from the upper triad headed by Ketha, or 10 exoterically. In the Mahabharata, the Prajapati are 21 in number, or 10, 6, and 5, 1065, thrice 7. Note, in the Kabbalah, the same numbers are a value of Jehovah, meaning 1065, since the numerical values of the 3 letters which compose his name, Jod, Vav, and twice He, are respectively 10, 6, and 5, or again thrice 7, 21. 10 is the mother of the soul, for life and light are therein united, says Hermes. For number 1 is born of the spirit, and the number 10 from matter, chaos feminine. The unity has made the 10 the unity, from Book of the Keys. By the means of the Temura, the anagrammatical method of Kabbalah, and the knowledge of 1065, in brackets 21, a universal science may be obtained regarding cosmos and its mysteries. Says Rabbi Yogel, the rabbis regard the numbers 10, 6, and 5 as the most sacred of all. End of note. Then the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5, the twice 7, the sum total. The 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5, in their totality twice 7, represent 31,415, the numerical hierarchy of the Dayan Kochans of various orders and of the inner or circumscribed world. Note: the reader may be told that an American Kabbalist has now discovered the same number for the Elohim. It came to the Jews from Chaldea. See Hebrew Metrology in the Masonic Review, July 1885, Macmillan Lodge, number 141. End of note. When placed on the boundary of the great circle of Pass-Not, see stanza 5, called also the Dhyana-Pasa, the rope of the angels, the rope that hedges off the phenomenal from the numeral cosmos, not falling within the range of our present objective consciousness, this number, when not enlarged by permutation and expansion, is ever 31,415 anagrammatically and Kabbalistically, being both the number of the circle and the mystic swastika, the twice 7 once more, for whatever way the two sets of figures are counted, when added separately, one figure after another, whether crossways, from right or from left, they will always yield 14. Mathematically, they represent the well-known calculation, namely, that the ratio of the diameter to the circumference of a circle is as 1 to 3.1415, or the value of the pi, as this ratio is called, the symbol p being always used in mathematical formulae to express it. This set of figures must have the same meaning, since the 1 to 314,159 and then again 1 to 3 to 1,415,927 are worked out in the secret calculations to express the various cycles and ages of the firstborn, or 311 trillion and 40 billion with fractions, and yield the same 13,415 by a process we are not concerned with at present. And it may be shown that Mr. Ralston Skinner, author of The Source of Measures, reads the Hebrew word alchim in the same number values by omitting, as said, the ciphers and by permutation, 13,514. Since Aleph is 1, L is 3 or 30, H is 5, I 1 for 10, and is 4, 40, and anagrammatically 31,415 as explained by him. Thus, while in the metaphysical world the circle with the one central point in it has no number, and is called anupadaka, parentless and numberless, meaning it can fall under no calculation, in the manifested world the mundane egg or circle is circumscribed within the groups called the line, the triangle, the pentacle, the second line, or the cube, or 13514. And when the point having generated a line thus become a diameter which stands for the androgynous logos, then the figures become 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, or a triangle, a line, a cube, a second line, and a pentacle. When the son separates from the mother, he becomes the father, the diameter standing for nature or the feminine principle. Therefore it is said, in the world of being, the one point fructifies the line, the virgin matrix of cosmos, the egg-shaped zero, and the Immaculate Mother gives birth to the form that combines all forms. Prajapati is called the first procreating male, and his mother's husband. Note: we find the same expression in Egypt. Mu signifies, for one thing, mother, and shows the character assigned to her in the triad of that country. She was no less the mother than the wife of Ammon, one of the principal titles of the god being the husband of his mother. The goddess Mu, or Mu, is addressed as Our Lady, the Queen of Heaven and of the earth, thus sharing these titles with the other mother goddesses, Isis, Hathor, etc. Maspero. End of note. This gives the keynote to all the later divine sons from immaculate mothers. It is greatly corroborated by the significant fact that Anna, the name of the mother of the Virgin Mary, now represented by the Roman Catholic Church as having given birth to her daughter in an immaculate way, Mary conceived without sin, is derived from the Chaldean Anna, heaven, or astral light, anima mundi, whence Anaita, Devi Durga, the wife of Shiva, is also called Anna Purna, and Kanya, the Virgin, Uma Kanya being her esoteric name, and meaning the Virgin of Light, astral light in one of its multitudinous aspects. And these are the essences, the flames, the elements, the builders, the numbers, the arupa, formless, the rupa, with bodies, and the force or divine man, the sum total. And from the divine man emanated the forms, the sparks, the sacred animals, and the messengers of the sacred fathers, the Pitris, within the Holy Four. Note: the four represented in the occult numerals by the tetractys, the sacred or perfect square, is a sacred number with the mystics of every nation and race. It has one and the same significance in Brahmanism, Buddhism, the Kabbalah, and in the Egyptian, Chaldean, and other numerical systems. End of note. The Devas, Pitris, Rishis, the Suras and the Asuras, the Daityas and Adityas, the Danavas and Gandharvas, etc., etc., have all their synonyms in our secret doctrine, as well as in the Kabbalah and the Hebrew angelology, but it is useless to give their ancient names, as it would only create confusion. Many of these may also be found now, even in the Christian hierarchy of divine and celestial powers. All those thrones and dominions, virtues and principalities, cherubs, seraphs, and demons, the various denizens of the sidereal world, are the modern copies of archaic prototypes. The very symbolism in their names, when transliterated and arranged in Greek and Latin, are sufficient to show it, as will be proved in several cases further on. The sacred animals are found in the Bible as well as in the Kabbalah, their meaning, a very profound one too, on the page of the Origins of Life. In the Sefer Jezira, it is stated that God engraved in the Holy Four the throne of His glory, the Ophanim, wheels or the world spheres, the seraphim, the sacred animals, and the ministering angels, and from these three, the air, water, and fire or ether, He formed His habitation. Note on the seraphim. This is a literal translation from the 9th and 10th sections. 10 numbers without what? 1. The Spirit of the loving God, who liveth in eternities. Voice and spirit and word, and this is the Holy Spirit. 2. Spirit out of spirit. He designed and hewed therewith 22 letters of foundation, 3 mothers and 7 double and 12 single, and 1 spirit out of them. 3. Water out of spirit. He designed and hewed with them the barren and the void, mud and earth. He designed them as a flower bed, hewed them as a wall, covered them as a paving. 4. Fire out of water. He designed and hewed therewith the throne of glory and the wheels, and the seraphim and the holy animals and the ministering angels, and of the 3 he founded his dwelling, as it is said, He makes his angels spirits, and his servants fiery flames. Which words, founded his dwelling, show clearly that in the Kabbalah, as in India, the deity was considered as the universe, and was not, in his origin, the extra-cosmic God he is now. End of note. Thus was the world made through 3 seraphim, Sefer, Cipher, and Cyper, or through number, numbers, and numbered. With the astronomical key, these sacred animals became the signs of the zodiac. Stanza 4 continued. 4. This was the army of the voice, the divine septenary. The sparks of the 7 are subject to, and the servants of, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and the 7th of the 7. This sloka gives again a brief analysis of the hierarchies of the Dayan Kochans, called devas, gods in India, or the conscious intelligent powers in nature. To this hierarchy correspond the actual types into which humanity may be divided, for humanity as a whole is in reality a materialized, though as yet imperfect expression thereof. The army of the voice is a term closely connected with the mystery of sound and speech, as an effect and corollary of the cause, divine thought. As beautifully expressed by P. Christian, the learned author of The History of Magic and of L'Homme Rouge de Thierry, the word spoken by, as well as the name of every individual, largely determine his future fate. Why? Because when our soul, mind, creates or evokes a thought, the representative sign of the thought is self-engraved upon the astral fluid, which is the receptacle and, so to say, the mirror of all the manifestations of being. The sign expresses the thing. The thing is the hidden or occult virtue of the sign. To pronounce a word is to evoke a thought and make it present. The magnetic potency of the human speech is the commencement of every manifestation in the occult world. To utter a name is not only to define a being, an entity, but place it under and condemn it through the emission of the word, verbum, to the influence of one or more occult potencies. Things are, for every one of us, that which it, the word, makes them while naming them. The word, verbum, of the speech of every man is, quite unconsciously to himself, a blessing or a curse. This is why our present ignorance about the properties or attributes of the idea, as well as about the attributes and properties of matter, is often fatal to us. Yes, names and words are either beneficent or maleficent. They are, in a certain sense, either venomous or health-giving, according to the hidden influences attached by supreme wisdom to their elements, that is to say, to the letters which compose them, and the numbers correlative to these letters. This is strictly true, as an esoteric teaching accepted by all the Eastern schools of occultism. In the Sanskrit, as also in the Hebrew and all other alphabets, every letter has its occult meaning and its rationale. It is a cause and an effect of a preceding cause, and a combination of these very often produces the most magical effect. The vowels, especially, contain the most occult and formidable potencies. The mantras, esoterically magical rather than religious, are chanted by the Brahmins, and so are the Vedas and other scriptures. The army of the voice is the prototype of the host of the Logos, or the word of Sefer Yisrael, called in the secret doctrine the one number issued from no number, the one eternal principle. The esoteric theogony begins with the one manifested, therefore not eternal in its presence and being, if eternal in its essence. The number of the numbers are numbered, the latter proceeding from the voice, the feminine vach, satarupa, one of the 100 forms or nature. It is from this number 10, or creative nature, the mother, the occult cipher, or naught, ever procreating and multiplying in union with the unit I, one, or the spirit of life, that the whole universe proceeded. In the Anugita, a conversation is given, chapter 6, 15, between a Brahmana and his wife, on the origin of speech and its occult properties. Note that Anugita forms part of the Asvameda Parvan of the Mahabharata. The translator of the Bhagavad Gita, edited by Max Müller, regards it as a continuation of the Bhagavad Gita. Its original is one of the oldest Upanishads. The wife asks how speech came into existence, and which was prior to the other, speech or mind. The Brahmana tells her that the apana, inspirational breath, becoming Lord, changes that intelligence which does not understand speech or words into the states of apana, and thus opens the mind. Thereupon he tells her a story, a dialogue between speech and mind. Both went to the self of being, that is, to the individual higher self, as Nilakanta thinks, to Prajapati, according to the commentator Arjuna Misa, and asked him to destroy their doubts and decide which of them preceded and was superior to the other. To this the Lord said, "Mind is superior. But speech answered the self of being by saying, I verily yield you your desires, meaning that by speech he acquired what he desired. Thereupon again the self told her that there are two minds, the movable and the immovable. The immovable is with me, he said. The movable is in your dominion, that is of speech, on the plane of matter. To that you are superior, by inasmuch, O beautiful one, as you came personally to speak to me in the way you did, that is proudly. Therefore, O Sarasvati, you shall never speak after hard exhalation. The goddess speech, Sarasvati, a later form or aspect of Vach, the goddess also of secret learning or esoteric wisdom, verily dwelt always between the prana and the apana. But, O noble one, going with the apana wind, vital air, though impelled, without the prana, expirational breath, she ran up to Prajapati, Brahma, saying, Be pleased, O venerable sir. Then the prana appeared again, nourishing speech. And therefore, speech never speaks after hard or inspirational exhalation. It is always noisy or noiseless. Of these two, the noiseless is the superior to the noisy speech. The speech which is produced in the body by means of the prana, and which then is transformed into apana, then becoming assimilated with the udana, physical organs of speech, then finally dwells in the samana, at the navel in the form of sound, as the material cause of all worlds, says Arjuna Mishra. So speech formerly spoke. Hence the mind is distinguished by reason of its being immovable, and the goddess speech by reason of her being movable. This allegory is at the root of the occult law, which prescribes silence upon the knowledge of certain secret and invisible things perceptible only to the spiritual mind, the sixth sense, and which cannot be expressed by noisy or uttered speech. This chapter of Anugita explains, says Arjuna Mishra, pranayama, regulation of the breath in yoga practices. This mode, however, without the previous acquisition of, or at least full understanding of the two higher senses, of which there are 7, as will be shown, pertains rather to the lower yoga. The hatha, so-called, was and still is discountenanced by the arhats. It is injurious to the health, and alone can never develop into right yoga. This story is quoted to show how inseparably connected are, in the metaphysics of old, intelligent beings, or rather intelligencies, with every sense or function, whether physical or mental. The occult claim that there are 7 senses in man, as in nature, as there are 7 states of consciousness, is corroborated in the same work. Chapter 7, on pratyahara, the restraints and regulation of the senses, pranayama being that of the vital winds, or breath. The Brahmana speaks in it of the institution of the 7 sacrificial priests, hotris. He says, the nose and the eyes and the tongue and the skin and the air as the 5th, or smell, sight, taste, touch and hearing, mind and understanding are the 7 sacrificial priests' separate stations, and which, dwelling in a minute space, still do not perceive each other. On this sensuous plane, none of them except mind. For mind says, the nose smells not without me, the eye does not take in color, etc., etc. I am the eternal chief among all elements, that is, senses. Without me, the senses never shine, like an empty dwelling, or like fires of flames, or like fires the flames of which are extinct. Without me, all beings, like fuel half dried and half moist, fail to apprehend qualities or objects even with the senses exerting themselves. Note: this shows the modern metaphysicians added to all past and present Hegel's, Berkeley's, Schopenhauer's, Hartmann's, Herbert Spencer's, and even the modern hylo-idealists to boot no better than the pale copyists of hoary antiquity. End of note. This, of course, will regard only to mind on the sensuous plane. Spiritual mind, the upper portion or aspect of the impersonal manas, How well the ancients were acquainted with the correlation of forces and all the recently discovered phenomena of mental and physical faculties and functions, with many more mysteries also, may be found in reading chapters 7 and 8 of this, in Philosophy and Mystic Learning, priceless work. See the quarrel of the senses about their respective superiority and their taking the Brahman, the Lord of all creatures, for their arbiter. You are all greatest and not greatest, or superior to objects, as A. Mishra says, none being independent of the other. You are all possessed of one's and other qualities. All are greatest in their own spheres, and all support one another. There is one unmoving life wind or breath, the yoga inhalation so-called, which is the breath of the one, our higher self. That is thee, or my, own self, accumulated in numerous forms. This breath, voice, self, or wind, pneuma, is the synthesis of the 7 senses, nominally all minor deities, and esoterically the septenary and the army of the voice. These sparks are called spheres, triangles, cubes, lines, and modulars, for thus stands the eternal Nidana, the Oihahu, the permutation of Oyahu. Note: the literal signification of the word is, among the Eastern occultists of the North, a circular wind, whirlwind, but in this instance it is a term to denote the ceaseless and eternal cosmic motion, or rather the force that moves it, which force is tacitly accepted as the deity but never named. It is the eternal Karana, the ever-acting cause. End of note. Next we see cosmic matter scattering and forming itself into elements, grouped into the mystic 4 within the 5th element, ether, the lining of Akasha, the anima mundi or mother of cosmos. Dots, lines, triangles, cubes, circles, and finally spheres. Why or how? Because, says the commentary, such is the first law of nature, and because nature geometrizes universally in all her manifestations. There is an inherent law, not only in the primordial, but also in the manifested matter of a phenomenal plane, by which nature correlates her geometrical forms, and later also her compound elements, and in which there is no place for accident or chance. It is a fundamental law in occultism that there is no rest or cessation of motion in nature. Note: it is the knowledge of this law that permits and helps the Arhat to perform his siddhis, or various phenomena, such as disintegration of matter, the transport of objects from one place to another. End of note. That which seems rest is only the change of one form into another, the change of substance going hand in hand with that of form, as we are taught in occult physics, which thus seem to have anticipated the discovery of the conservation of matter by a considerable time, says the ancient commentary to stanza 4. Note: these are ancient commentaries attached with modern glossaries to the stanzas, as the commentaries in their symbolical language are usually as difficult to understand as the stanzas themselves. End of note. The mother is the fiery fish of life. She scatters her spawn, and the breath motion heats and quickens it. The grains of spawn are soon attracted to each other and form the curds in the ocean of space. The larger lumps coalesce and receive new spawn in fiery dots, triangles, and cubes, which ripen, and at the appointed time some of the lumps detach themselves and assume a spheroidal form, a process which they effect only when not interfered with by the others, after which law number, secret left out, comes into operation. Motion, the breath, becomes the whirlwind and sets them into rotation. Note: in a polemical scientific work, The Modern Genesis, the author, the Reverend W. B. Slaughter, criticizing the position assumed by the astronomers, asks, "It is to be regretted that the advocates of this nebular theory have not entered more largely into the discussion of it, the beginning of rotation. No one condescends to give us the rationale of it. How does the process of cooling and contracting the mass impart to it a rotary motion?" The question is amply treated in the addendum. It is not materialistic science that can ever solve it. Motion is eternal in the unmanifested and periodical in the manifest, says an occult teaching. It is when heat caused by the descent of flame into primordial matter causes its particles to move, which motion becomes whirlwind. A drop of liquid assumes a spheroidal form owing to its atoms moving around themselves in their ultimate, unresolvable and noumenal essence. Unresolvable for physical science, at any rate. End of note. Stanza 4 continued. 5. Which is darkness, the boundless, or the no-number, adinidana svabhavat, the circle for X, unknown quantity. 1. The adisanat, the number, for he is one. Adisanat, translated literally, is the first or primeval ancient, which name identifies the Kabbalistic Ancient of Days and the Holy Aged, Shephira and Adam Kadmon, with Brahma the Creator, also called Sanat, among his other names and titles. Svabhavat is the mystic essence, the plastic root of physical nature. Numbers when manifested, the number in its unity of substance on the highest plane. The name is of Buddhist use and a synonym for the fourfold anima mundi, the Kabbalistic archetypal world, from whence proceed the creative, formative, and the material worlds, the scintillae or sparks, the various other worlds contained in the last three. The worlds are all subject to rulers or regents, rishis and pitris with the Hindus, angels with the Jews and Christians, gods with the ancients in general. 2. The voice of the word, Svabhavat, the numbers, for he is 1 and 9. Note. Which makes 10, or the perfect number applied to the Creator, the name given to the totality of creators blended by the monotheists into one, as the Elohim, Adman Kadmon, or Sephira, the crown, are the androgyne synthesis of the 10 Sephiroth, who stand for the symbol of the manifested universe in the popularized Kabbalah. The esoteric Kabbalists, however, follow the Eastern occultists, divide the upper Sephiroth or triangle from the rest, or Sephira, Chochmah and Bina, which leaves 7 Sephiroth. As for Svabhavat, the Orientalists explain the term as meaning the universal plastic matter diffused through space with, perhaps, half an eye to the ether of science, but the occultists identify it with the Father-Mother on the mystic plane, Vide Supra. End of note. 3. The formless square, Arupa. The circle, this means that the boundless circle, 0, becomes a figure or number only when one of the 9 figures precedes it, and thus manifests its value and potency, the word, or logos, in union with voice and spirit, the expression and source of consciousness, standing for the 9 figures and thus forming, with the cipher, the decade which contains in itself all the universe. Note. In union with the spirit and the voice, referring to the abstract thought and concrete voice, or the manifestation thereof, the effect of the cause. Adam Kadmon, or Tetragrammaton, is the logos in the Kabbalah. Therefore, this triad answers in the latter to the highest triangle of Keter, Chochmat, and Bina, the last a female potency, and at the same time the male Jehovah, as partaking of the nature of Chochmah, or the male wisdom. End of note. The triad forms within the circle the Tetractis, or sacred four, the square within the circle being the most potent of all the magical figures. And these 3 enclosed within the circle, the boundless circle, are the sacred four, and the 10 are the Arupa, subjective, formless universe. The one rejected is the son of our system, may be found in the oldest Sanskrit scriptures. In the Rig Veda, Aditi, the boundless or infinite space, translated by Max Müller, the visible infinite, visible by the naked eye, the endless expanse, beyond the earth, beyond the clouds, beyond the sky, is the equivalent of mother space, coeval with, quote, darkness, unquote. She is very properly called the mother of the gods, Deva Matri, as it is from her cosmic matrix that all the heavenly bodies of our system were born, sun and planets. Thus she is described allegorically in this wise. 8 sons were born from the body of Aditi, she approached the gods with 7, but cast away the 8th. Martanda, our sun. The 7 suns called the Aditya are, cosmically and astronomically, the 7 planets, and the sun being excluded from their number shows plainly that the Hindus may have known, and in fact knew, of a 7th planet without calling it Uranus. Note, the secret doctrine teaches that the sun is a central star and not a planet. Yet the ancients knew of and worshipped 7 great gods, excluding the sun and earth. Which was that mystery god they set apart? Of course not Uranus, discovered only by Hersked in 1781, but could it not be known by another name? Says the author of Masonière Occulte, occult sciences having discovered, through astronomical calculations, that the number of the planets must be 7, the ancients were led to introduce the sun into the scale of the celestial harmonies, and make him occupy the vacant place. Thus every time they perceived an influence that pertained to none of the 6 planets known, they attributed it to the sun. The error only seems important, but was not so in practical results if the ancient astrologers replaced Uranus by the sun, which is a central star relatively motionless, turning only on its axis, and regulating time and measure, and which cannot be turned aside from its true functions. The nomenclature of the days of the week is thus faulty. The Sunday ought to be Uranus Day. Uranides, Urandi, adds the learned writer Ragon, from Masonière Occulte. End of note. But esoterically and theologically, so to say, the Adityas are, in their primitive, most ancient meanings, the 8 and the 12 great gods of the Hindu pantheon. The 7 allow the mortals to see their dwellings, but show themselves only to the arhats, says an old proverb, their dwellings standing here for planets. The ancient commentary gives an allegory and explains it. 8 houses were built by Mother, 8 houses for her 8 divine sons, 4 large and 4 small ones, 8 brilliant sons according to their age and merits. Balilu Martanda was not satisfied, though his house was the largest. He began to work as the huge elephants do. He breathed, drew in, into his stomach the vital airs of his brothers. He sought to devour them. The larger 4 were far away, far on the margin of their kingdom. Note, planetary system, end of note. They were not robbed, affected, and laughed. "Do your worst, sir, you cannot reach us," they said. But the smaller wept. They complained to the mother. She exiled Balilu to the center of her kingdom, from whence he could not move. Since then, he only watches and threatens. He pursues them, turning slowly around himself, they turning swiftly from him, and he following from afar the direction in which his brothers move on the path that encircles their houses. Note, the sun rotates on his axis always in the same direction in which the planets revolve in their respective orbits, astronomy teaches us. End of note. From that day he feeds on the sweat of the mother's body. He fills himself with her breath and refuse. Therefore she rejected him. Thus, the rejected sun being our sun, evidently as shown above, the sun's sons refer not only to our planets, but to the heavenly bodies in general, himself only a reflection of the central spiritual sun. Surya is the prototype of all those bodies that evolved after him. In the Vedas he is called Lokashaksu, the eye of the world, our planetary world. And he is one of the 3 chief deities. He is called indifferently the son of Dyaus and of Aditi, because no distinction is made with reference to a scope allowed for the esoteric meaning. Thus he is depicted as drawn by 7 horses, and by 1 horse with 7 heads, the former referring to his 7 planets, the latter to their common origin from the one cosmic element. This one element is called figuratively fire. The Vedas, Aitareya Brahmana of Haug also, page 1, teach that the fire verily is all the deities, Narada Inanugita. The meaning of the allegory is plain, for we have both the Jhana commentary and modern science to explain it, though the two differ in more than one particular. The occult doctrine rejects the hypothesis born out of the nebula theory that the 7 great planets have evolved from the Sun's central mass, not of this visible Sun at any rate. The first condensation of cosmic matter, of course, took place about its central nucleus, its parent Sun, but our Sun, it is taught, merely detached itself earlier than all the others, as the rotating mass contracted, and is their elder, bigger brother therefore, not their father. The 8 Adityas, the gods, are all formed from the eternal substance, cometary matter, eternal substance, cometary matter, the mother. Note: this essence of cometary matter, occult science teaches, is totally different from any of the chemical or physical characteristics with which modern science is acquainted. It is homogeneous in its primitive form beyond the solar systems, and differentiates us entirely once it crosses the boundaries of our Earth's region. Vitiated by the atmospheres of the planets and the already compound matter of the interplanetary stuff, heterogeneous only in our manifested world. End of note. So the 8 Adityas are all formed from the eternal substance, cometary matter, the mother, or the world stuff, which is both the 5th and the 6th cosmic principle, the upadi or basis of the universal soul, just as in man, the microcosm, manas is the upadi of buddhi. Notes: manas, the mind principle, or the human soul; buddhi, the divine soul. End of notes. Then come the sons, the 7 fighters, the one, the 8th left out, and his breath, which is the light maker, Bhaskara. There is a whole poem on the pre-genetic battles fought by the growing planets before the final formation of cosmos, thus accounting for the seemingly disturbed position of the systems of several planets, the plane of the satellites of some, of Neptune and Uranus, for instance, of which the ancients knew nothing, it is said, being tilted over, thus giving them an appearance of retrograde motion. These planets are called the warriors, the architects, and are accepted by the Roman Church as the leaders of the heavenly hosts, thus showing the same traditions. Having evolved from cosmic space and before the final formation of the primaries and the annihilation of the planetary nebula, the Sun, we are taught, drew into the depths of its mass all the cosmic vitality he could, threatening to engulf his weaker brothers before the law of attraction and repulsion was finally adjusted, after which he began feeding on the mother's refuse and sweat. In other words, on those portions of ether, the breath of the universal soul, of the existence and constitution of which science is as yet absolutely ignorant. A theory of this kind having been propounded by Sir William Grove, see Correlation of the Physical Forces, 1843, page 81, and Address to the British Association, 1866, who theorized that the systems, quote, are gradually changing by atmospheric additions or subtractions, or by accretions and diminutions arising from nebulous substances, unquote. And again that, quote, the Sun may condense gaseous matter as it travels in space, and so heat may be produced, unquote. The archaic teaching seems scientific enough, even in this age. Note: very similar ideas in Mr. W. Matthew Williams' The Fuel of the Sun, in Dr. C. William Siemens' On the Conservation of Solar Energy, Nature, 25, page 440 to 444, March 9th, 1882. And also in Dr. P. Martin Duncan's Address of the President of the Geological Society, London, May 1877. End of note. Mr. W. Matthew Williams suggested that the diffused matter or aether, which is the recipient of the heat radiations of the universe, is thereby drawn into the depths of the solar mass. Expelling thence the previously condensed and thermally exhausted ether, it becomes compressed and gives up its heat, to be in turn itself driven out in a rarefied and cool state to absorb a fresh supply of heat, which he supposes to be in this way taken up by the ether, and again concentrated and redistributed by the sons of the universe. Note: see Comparative Geology by Alexander Winchell, LLD, page 56, end of note. This is about as close an approximation to the occult teachings as science ever imagined, for occultism explains it by the dead breath given back by Martanda and his feeding on the sweat and refuse of Mother Space. What could affect Neptune, Saturn, and Jupiter but little would have killed such comparatively small houses as Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Note: when we speak of Neptune, it is not as an occultist, but as a European. The true Eastern occultist will maintain that there are many yet undiscovered planets in our system. Neptune does not belong to it. His apparent connection with our Sun and the influence of the latter upon Neptune notwithstanding, this connection is myopic, imaginary, they say. End of note. As Uranus was not known before the end of the 18th century, the name of the fourth planet mentioned in the allegory must remain to us so far a mystery. The breath of all the seven is said to be Bhaskara, light-making, because they, the planets, were all comets and suns in their origin. They evolve into manvantaric life from primeval chaos, now the noumenon of irresolvable nebulae, by aggregation and accumulation of the primary differentiations of the eternal matter, according to the beautiful expression in the commentary. Quote, thus the sons of light clothe themselves in the fabric of darkness, unquote. They are called allegorically the heavenly snails, on account of their to us formless intelligences inhabiting unseen their starry and planetary homes, and, so to speak, carrying them as the snails do along with themselves in their revolution. The doctrine of a common origin for all the heavenly bodies and planets was, as we see, inculcated by the archaic astronomers before Kepler, Newton, Leibniz, Kant, Herschel, and Laplace. Heat, the breath, attraction and repulsion, the three great factors of motion, are the conditions under which all the members of all this primitive family are born, developed, and die, to be reborn after a night of Brahma, during which eternal matter relapses periodically into its primary, undifferentiated state. The most attenuated gases can give no idea of its nature to the modern physicist. Centers of forces at first, the invisible sparks of primordial atoms differentiate into molecules and become suns, passing gradually into objectivity, gases, radiant, cosmic, the one whirlwind, or motion, finally giving the impulse to the form, and the initial motion, regulated and sustained by the never-resting breaths, the Dhyan-Kohans. Stanza 4 continued. Then the second seven, the Lipika, produced by the three, word, voice, and spirit. The rejected sun is one, the sons are countless. Then the second seven, who are the Lipika. The Lipika, from the word lipi, writing, means literary, the scribes. Note: these are the four immortals, which are mentioned in Atharva Veda as the watchers or guardians of the four quarters of the sky. See chapters 76, 1-4 et sequens. End of note. Mystically, these divine beings are connected with karma, the law of retribution, for they are the recorders or analysts who impress on the to us invisible tablets of the astral light, the great picture gallery of eternity, a faithful record of every act and even thought of man, of all that was, is, or ever will be in the phenomenal universe. As said in Isis, this divine and unseen canvas is the book of life, As it is the Lipika who project into objectivity from the passive universal mind the ideal plane of the universe upon which the builders reconstruct the cosmos after every pralaya, it is they who stand parallel to the 7 angels of the presence, whom the Christians recognize in the 7 planetary spirits, or the spirits of the stars. For thus it is they who are the direct amanuenses of the eternal ideation, or, as called by Plato, the divine thought. The eternal record is no fantastic dream, for we meet with the same records in the world of gross matter. A shadow never falls upon a wall without leaving thereupon a permanent trace which might be made visible by resorting to proper processes, says Dr. Draper. Quote, the portraits of our friends or landscape views may be hidden on the sensitive surface from the eye, but they are ready to make their appearance as soon as proper developers are resorted to. A spectre is concealed on a silver or a glassy surface until, by our necromancy, we make it come forth into the visible world. Upon the walls of our most private apartments, where we think the eye of intrusion is altogether shut out, and our retirement can never be profaned, there exist the vestiges of all our acts, silhouettes, or whatever we have done. Unquote. Note: conflict between religion and science. Draper, pages 132 and 133. Doctors Jevons and Babbage believe that every thought, displacing the particles of the brain and setting them in motion, scatters them throughout the universe, and they think that each particle of the existing matter must be a register of all that has happened. Principles of Science, Volume 2, page 455. Thus the ancient doctrine has begun to acquire rights of citizenship in the speculations of the scientific world. The 40 assessors who stand in the region of Amenti as the accusers of the soul before Osiris belong to the same class of deities as the Lipika, and might stand paralleled were not the Egyptian gods so little understood in their esoteric meaning. The Hindu Chitragupta, who reads out the account of every soul's life from his register, called Agrasandani, the assessors who read theirs from the heart of the defunct, which becomes an open book before, whether Yama, Minos, Osiris, or Karma, are also many copies of, variants from the Lipika and their astral records. Nevertheless, the Lipika are not deities connected with death, but with life eternal. Connected as the Lipika are with the destiny of every man, and the birth of every child, whose life is already traced in the astral light, not fatalistically, but only because the future, like the past, is ever alive in the present. They may also be said to exercise an influence on the science of horoscopy. We must admit the truth of the latter whether we will or not, for, as observed by one of the modern adepts of astrology, now that photography has revealed to us the chemical influence of the sidereal system by fixing on the sensitized plate of the apparatus milliards of stars and planets that had hitherto baffled the efforts of the most powerful telescopes to discover them, it becomes easier to understand how our solar system can, at the birth of a child, influence his brain, virgin of any impression, in a definite manner and according to the presence of the zenith of such or another zodiacal constellation. Note: Les Mystères de l'Horoscope, page 11. Next chapter is Stanza 5.